Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you for joining us today. Dave Miller, president here at EMAM, and I have with me Chuck Bulow, VP of Business Development. He's going to share with us an overview of all the different options you have with storage and archive from the MAM system. Okay, with no further ado, let me turn over to Chuck Bulow, who's going to share with us an overview of EMAM and all the storage and archive options you have. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Dave. So we've got a lot to cover here today. We'll go through just slides here to kind of understand how EMAM manages different types of storage and different locations and so on. So, but really to understand the importance of adding an asset management system to storage is really to help you streamline the flow of media and products and production, automation, being able to control access a little bit more, having either centralized repository or multiple locations. We do manage multiple locations as well, controlling different versions of the assets and so on. And then, of course, also being able to get access remotely. So depending on where the media resides, up in the cloud or via VPN or something of local storage and so on, you can kind of manage that process pretty much with your file system as well as with the EMAM system to kind of manage that process. And of course, also permissions on what you can see and do with that content once it's stored. But the idea too is to also optimize then the cost of storage. So being able to then manage that storage, where the assets are, how many assets are in one location, being able to then reduce that duplication cost as well. A lot of our clients are using our system to kind of manage the process to reduce the duplications of media. But then also being able to tag the metadata, being able to do advanced search, AI type searching, automated tagging of media, being able to find that content no matter where it is. So if it's stored in the cloud or on LTO library, local spinning disk, it doesn't really matter. The MAM system then gives you that advanced search capabilities. You also then have the security levels to be able to set within the MAM system. So we are at top level as far as like, security, data security, compliance, and so on that maybe need to meet that compliance and so on with security levels. You can do that also through the MAM system as well. But then also being able to scale as needed. So within EMAM, you'll find that there's really no limit as far as like how much storage you can use and so on. We don't have really any limitations on that other than just hardware getting access to the media and managing the media as well. But the other thing too is to be able to then archive the storage and manage that process as well. We'll talk about that throughout the seminar or webinar here today. Being able to then manage where your proxies are, where the original content is, mezzanine copies. Do I need to keep the mezz copy anymore? I could delete the mezz copy, keep the proxy in the original, and then of course archive that media to any one of the LTO library systems, long-term storage, deep archive in the cloud, but then preserve that digital data and be able to move it around so you're not having to then manage that entire process manually. We can do that in an automated fashion all through the EMAM system and so on. Now, when you're managing, say, production storage, so there's going to be different levels of storage that we can manage. So at the first level, where production storage, most of our clients, what they'll do is be able to then upload the media into a fast storage locally or in the cloud, be able to then start producing off that content. So photos, images, graphics, video, audio, images, and so on. So you're able to then, off this fast storage, then be able to edit off that production storage. One other thing I forgot to mention here is Lucid Link as well. So we do work with Lucid Link to be able to then manage content as well. But real-time editing, rendering, we also do live production as well. So typically we'll use production storage to then capture live media and then edit that. And then of course also collaborating on different projects as well. But the importance of the production storage, as most of you know, I mean, for the high-speed access, for the editors to be able to work off multiple streams of videos at the same time to ensure that it's reliable, being able to do playback, being able to then, sustain the storage capacities and handling large files. A lot of our clients have hours and hours of footage that are the same video file. We have one that stores about 6 to 8 hours of one file that has 6 to 8 hours in length. So being able to have our production storage to be able to then scale to that need and be able to accommodate then kind of those large files in the library. Now, the other part about this is being able to then share that content with others. So if you have proxy views and those are on good production storage or fast storage, I can then send out links and have multiple people then be able to stream that content and be able to stream that out to their local devices and so on, or iPads and Android devices as well. But then able to then integrate then the various media types, different tool sets that are out there. Folks are using like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Adobe Premiere, being able to then access that all off that production storage. And then of course, controlling then through the MAM system, who gets to see that content and what they get to do with that content as well. So again, being able to, through the MAM system, being able to implement then those security measures as well. So on the production storage, again, on EMAM side, so looking at EMAM, we allow you to create what we call ingest profiles to then describe exactly where the media goes, how it's processed through, excuse me, the transcoder, and then be able to then tag the media with metadata and so on to be able to access that media and find that media in searching for various things, and through AI search as well. So we do have that process. Be able to then catalog the media, being able to organize that in categories, and then be able to then clump or basically collect all the media into different categories that are based on projects and so on. Then they'll also be able to then do that AI tagging, as well as human tagging and manual tagging and so on. But it then makes it much, much easier then to go in and find that content. Now, typically through editors, they'll be able to go through the panel and search for the content through various searching capabilities. So being able to have editors look for a project, look for media based on AI tagging and so on. That MAM system then gives you that real-time access and speed of finding content that you need to use in your production and so on. So lots of options there on the AI side as well. But again, being able to then manage also through the MAM system version control. So the idea is that through the MAM system, I'm able to go in and say, this is the original content. We've edited the audio or added subtitles. We've added a new version with a logo and so on. EMAM can then manage all of that versioning inside of the MAM system, where it'd be very, very difficult if you just had media files and in folders and so on. We're able to manage that process and then who gets to see what and which versions they have access to. So being able to then collaborate as well on that media, having multiple users being able to look into the same media, find that media, make comments and various things with different sharing options as well, with links and proxies and original content there as well. Now, behind the MAM system though, with the production storage, I can automate pretty much all of the checks and balances of the media and the status of their of that media in the production flow. So I can go in and create automated media where I could go in and tag the media, transcode the media, do quality checks. I can do a QC on media before it then goes over to the editors to process. I can do then automated process for metadata tagging and so on, and custom workflows that then we have one actually where they have a button that they push that says, hey, extract the audio and then send it over to Pro Tools and have that edited. And then once I drop it into a watch folder, the EMAM system automatically creates a new version with a new audio track, let's say, or adds captions as well. So lots of automation in there that we can kind of manage the process. On the other key thing too is backup and redundancy. So through the MAM system, we can set up rules that allow you to kind of back up your media at certain times of the day or the night, being able to manage that process, and then of course restore that media in there as well. So again, on the example of the different ingest types profiles, we can go in, set up a profile to store that media, put it into a different location, catalog the media in what we call categories, setting up permission levels and so on to manage that. The editors then can go in, grab that entire media group, video, audio, images, graphics, documents, whatever it might be, import that into whatever editing tool that they're using, and then put back into the MAM system whatever sequences and things that they've created or rendered files. We can then manage that version of that, not only the project file, but then also the media file as well. So that's really key for us and some of our editor or customers. Their editors are able to see then different versions of the project, but then also versions of the different sequences that have been produced, or different elements of Photoshop or images and things like that. So you can then collaborate, of course, on the media, and then through transcoding and so on, and various types of quality or output of media in different formats and so on, we can manage that process with different types of transcoders as well. So again, on the benefits of having a production storage, I can the efficiency of being able to then stream the content right to the editors and so on, collaborate on all the media, of course, keep it secure, flexible, and then also managing my cost savings. But again, through the MAM system, I can see where all my storage is and so on, and then set up rules to be able to move that content between the different storage levels and so on, with near storage or nearline storage or deep archive and so on. But again, with this, we can manage metadata, regular backups, access to the media, workflow automation, and so on. Again, the version control, scalability planning. So you see that the system's being taxed a little bit more than normal during certain periods of the time. The IT folks might then analyze that and say, hey, you know what? We may want to add some more components of EMAM to then help with streaming or ingest of media as well. And of course, EMAM and our partners and so on can then also help you with training and understanding all of that as well. But key things for this on the primary and the backup and so on, typically it's the database. The database then houses all the metadata that we create, all that backup and process that backup of that media, maybe the data, the SQL database data, and that's backed up somewhere safe, off premise and so on. So again, different users, of course, in the MAM system, you can set up then access to that media based on their permission levels with categories and so on. But again, we can kind of manage that entire process all through the EMAM system. And then last couple of things here for this on the production storage, we can then set up that automated function where if media is then ingested, nobody touches that media, say for 90 days or 60 days, I can then automatically have that moved over to archive storage. It keeps the proxy file intact, of course, and then of course the metadata, so I can find the content, and then I can then see that it's been archived because nobody's touched it for 60 days. Then I can restore that media as needed for production. So now nearline storage we also use where it's kind of like a mid-level between the deep archive and the production storage. So we can manage then the access of that media and movement of that media over to, say, a nearline storage. So maybe a project has been started, it's being worked on, but then maybe you just want to move it off to a cheaper storage or more cost-effective storage to then, say, sit there until somebody calls back that project and then brings it back onto the production storage and then for editing and so on. So a lot of the customers that we have, what they'll do is they'll move off to a NAS storage or a less expensive storage, and then once the project, because they're going to use the project maybe in the next week, for example, but they can move it off through the MAM system. You move it off onto nearline storage, and then bring it back when everybody's ready to start working on that project as well. So again, we can store and manage all types of media, all the backups of the projects, and so on. Getting it off the expensive production storage, because IT is always looking at and seeing duplicates and multiple projects of the same thing and over again. We can again manage that process for you. And then with the production storage, getting the media off that, then other projects that are pertinent and high priority, they can actually go in and then be able to start working on those because there's space on that production storage. But again, we can kind of manage that entire process for you. Different performances as well, in the nearline storages. Different companies like Dell and Isilon and some of the other ScaleLogic and various things, they have different levels. Quantum as well, with the different storage facilities and cost of those platforms and so on to store that media. And kind of, again, we can then manage that process of movement between these different types of storages as well. So again, the difference obviously with the production storage versus the nearline archive storage is obviously you're doing real-time editing on the production, but then of course using nearline storage archive more as a temporary location just to put things aside, make room on the production storage, and then being able to bring it back at any time. So again, this does cost, manage your cost of your storage between the two layers. And again, like I said, if you want, you can make this an automated fashion within EMAM, or you can actually do it in a manual process. That's up to you and how you set that up in the MAM system. But it's quite easy actually to set up the different rules and so on within EMAM to kind of manage all the different types of storage that you have and so on. And again, most of these systems, like we have one client that so far in 5 years, they've upgraded their storage like 4 or 5 times to add on more storage at each level of the nearline or production storage and so on. We don't care at that point as long as we see the storage systems, the RAID systems that are out there, SSD drives and so on, NAS storages, we connect to it, all of that. But once again, we do manage the process in which moving media between different locations. So now on the nearline side, what you can do, like I said, you can automate this process. You can have it immediately go to archive as well to the nearline storage upon ingest. So if somebody's uploading content and media, we can set up an ingest profile to automatically go into a certain nearline storage first. And then when people need it, they can then restore it back onto production storage when they're ready to start editing that content. Again, we also index the media and then catalog it. We use the categories to then categorize all the media, making it easier to find the media and then pull it in and then pull it into a production side. And then of course, also the metadata tagging, which is key for us, making it quite easy to then go in and find individual files or group of file based on group of files based on the metadata side. So again, automated process can be set in the background. These can be just simple rules that you have. The different ingest profiles can then do transcoding, QC, the media, metadata tagging automatically, and so on. Being able to then with a friendly browser, so we are based on an HTML5 browser, I can go in and then simply just search and find the content based on keywords or AI search or AI tagging and so on, be able to then access that media. But then of course also we do manage that access via the assignments of the users to different groups, to different media based on the category assignments as well. So we can then go in and find that content if they have access to it or have permissions to see that media. And then at any one time, if they do have the option to be able to restore that content, they can bring that back in as well. But again, through the MAM system and adding us as a overlay on top of the nearline storage and production storage, of course, we can then manage and control all of that access to that media. Now, backup and redundancy, this is really key for a lot of our clients. So you've got an archive system that then could automatically archive the media to a deep archive or a nearline archive storage in this case here. And we will note that's where it's at. Now, EMEM does have the ability to store in 4 different locations. So like source drives that are attached to the server, or source drives that are available on the network, the original storage or production storage, nearline storage, or cloud storage, and then of course deep archive storage as well, an LTO or cloud. So there's 4 different locations where you can actually store the media. And I just have one icon here, but you could see up to 4 different icons here, and know that that copy of that media is actually in one of those locations. And at any one point in time, if you do need to purge off one, we do have manual and automated process to actually purge mezzanine copies or backup copies and things like that. That's up to you. And typically that's done by an admin as well. So most users don't have access to that. So again, once the media then is archived, most of our users, what they'll do is they'll have a project like this is Age of Airplanes for DaVinci Resolve project. They can go ahead and just select everything in that project, hit the archive button, and it'll be moved off to LTO or cloud storage or nearline storage, wherever you're going to go. In this case here, nearline storage. So like I said, that could be archived and moved and then backed up. And off the production storage, making room for more pertinent projects and so on. But then it quickly, one button down or one selection down below there, they could just take the entire project and hit restore. It'll bring back everything back onto the production storage where it originally came back, and then be able to then start editing off that content and using that content. But again, we just organize all of that process for you all through the EMEM system. So once again, I mean, the cost savings here, being able to manage the costs for the different storage levels, trying to automate this process as much as possible. We had a lot of clients who looked at us and said, okay, you make it easier for us to manage where things are and where things are moved. And then being able to call it back at any time and so on, but it's managing their cost, for cost-effective storage like a NAS or something that's offline, but and off the production storage, which is obviously cheaper to kind of store it there, but then being able to call it back in just a selection of the menu and so on. So again, we got robust security levels as well, and managing who has access to the media, permission to access all that content as well. So we do manage all that process. But here's this kind of a sample of what we have as far as like an automated process where I can set up thresholds for the media on a storage. So if I ingest media into my S3 bucket or my local NAS or SAN storage and so on, if I go ahead and set up a day here, like 90 days and purge threshold and so on, that means that if nobody opens that video up or nobody uses that in a production and so on, it will automatically be then archived to say deep archive or nearline archive. So we can set up these different processes in an automated fashion. And of course you can do it in a manual fashion as well. But again, best practices here, obviously within the MEM system, being able to then auto tag the media or manually tag the media with metadata, doing regular backups of the media itself and also the database within the system, giving again robust access controls to prevent unauthorized users to access the media. And in those automated workflows, it just depends on how deep you want to go or how simple you want to go. But the tools are there within the MEM system to be able to do that. So now going into deep archive, so we work with a number of the different platforms that are up in the cloud. So being able to then take that media, move it off into very low cost storage temporarily or deep archive for a long period of time. So the different platforms basically have different levels of how fast it is to bring it back or restore that content. So the different levels you can decide. We then are also able to manage those different levels for you. So you could set up profiles for archiving of the media to maybe a deep archive, or maybe not so deep and mid-level. So like Azure Blob and Glacier and Backblaze and Wasabi and so on. They have different levels, so we can manage that different storage location. And then it just kind of depends on how fast you want to bring back the media. That will determine at which level we have. So, but we, excuse me again, we can manage all of that, through the EMAM system and Deep Archive. Now, what this does though for you is cut your cost tremendously. So we're just on with a client and being able to talk about maybe using Lucid Link. Lucid Link is great for production and so on, but maybe long-term, not so maybe cost-effective to do. So we can manage the process maybe to carry media off of Lucid Link and then put it into Glacier and then bring it back to Lucid Link or different production storage or wherever you'd like to put it back. But these different levels that you have with Glacier, with Blob, Backblaze, and Wasabi and others, you're able to then manage that cost all through permission levels, or not permission levels, but rules that you can set within the MAM system. So again, if media is not touched or reaches a certain date, all of the projects or the media can then be moved off into Deep Archive and then be able to be restored at any one point in time. So it's kind of a pay-as-you-go model in some of the cloud-based Deep Archive systems. So as you upload the media, they're only going to charge you with what media you have in Deep Archive. So if you do call it back and delete from the archive, you can do so as well. But that's all done through the MAM rules and setups and so on, and automated workflows and so on. Now, on the Deep Archive side, there's really no infrastructure, of course. Everything's up in the cloud. Everything's managed for you up in the cloud, depending on what service you have with that cloud customer about backup and retention and so on. You basically can set up all those rules and sign up for different processes with them and services and so on. But physically, everything's stored up in the cloud, no longer on your production storage or nearline storage, and so on. And again, it's fully accessible through the MAM system, being able to search for the content, see the proxy, review it, and then retrieve what you need at any one point in time. But again, the durability of the cloud, I mean, they often have situations where they're in their regions and so on, being able to back up that media. So if any issues do happen with the servers or storage that they're located on, there's always a backup and so on. But again, it's different services that you have with those different platforms for Deep Archive as well. Again, the enhanced security is controlled through us in the MAM, as well as the back-end side through the Deep Archive platforms that they have with encryption and access control as well. Backup like this, great for data recovery or data, disaster recovery and redundancy, but then also recovery as well from the disaster. So if your servers go down, SAN goes down and so on, and it was copied up into the Deep Archive, no worries. With EMAM, we can then restore that media and then bring it back into production storage as well. Great way to kind of save energy costs and so on at your facilities and so on, but making it quite easy to process media, upload media, store media safely, and then be able to restore that at any time. So now the key here is optimizing the usage of your media, where it goes, how it gets up there, and then the different levels of storage that you have as options for archive and so on. It's great where you can kind of go in, do a cost analysis of the different storage levels and how you move data back and forth and so on. And then kind of manage your costs all through that. So that whole process, it can be done. There's calculators and things that these guys have. We can kind of point you in that direction, as far as like trying to analyze different levels and different storage that you have. So now what's key for us, again, going back into that ingest profile process where you can set up the profile to immediately archive the media as it's coming in. So a lot of our clients actually will do this. Well, they'll go ahead and archive it right away up to Deep Archive, okay, and store there. It may still be on the production storage locally or on some NAS or SAN, but the ability just to go ahead through the profile and have it automatically backed up makes you feel good. So, being able to recover that at any time if something does happen, like you said, with your local storage, you can then be able to bring it back from the cloud, and then be able to bring it back and put it back on our production storage that's been recovered and so on. Now, the rich metadata and tagging, AI tagging, automated metadata tagging, and so on, that still can be done even though the original is stored up in the cloud. We still have the access through the database, being able to add more metadata, more organization of categories that you assign the media to, setting up permissions and so on. So the access and retrieval and so on is fully managed by the EMAM system, and then being able to record, or not record, but restore the content at any time as long as you have access to that media. Again, the proxies are still live and able to, for preview, define the content you want, and then you just select the restore button of the media that you want to bring back and put back in production. So, like I said, on disaster recovery, this is a great way to, kind of use Deep Archive as disaster recovery. So production servers and stuff go down. Again, you can recover all that media and bring it back down to your production storage there. So best practices here, again, setting up a clear archive policy within the MAM system, being able to then set up and say, okay, automatically archive it, archive our database as well, or make a copy of our database and back that up as well. And then, of course, managing the metadata all through the EMAM system. The media is backed up, the metadata is there, it's in the database, and if the database is backed up, you're fully protected at that point to be able to then restore all the media and, of course, all the metadata there as well. Typical audits and verifications happen as well, depending on the different platforms that are out there. Kind of checks and balances of your media and making sure it's still intact and available for us to then restore. And then, of course, everything that you have within the MAM system can be completely automated during the process. And then we will also detect any errors on the upload side into the archive and near archive as well, or nearline archive. But we can verify that everything has been copied accurately up to that location, and then can be then restored accurately back to the production storage. So the MAM system does have metrics to give you an idea of where all your media is stored, how many files are stored there, where they're stored, the amount, duration, file sizes, and so on. That's also available for admins within the EMAM system. So you can go ahead and look at and see, hey, you know what, we've got S3 bucket, way too many assets located in there. We can find out through the MAM system as well what assets are actually stored in S3 or FSX or Lucid or Wasabi and so on. It doesn't really matter, but we have then visually being able to then see that content. So LTO libraries is another way to go. Again, we can manage multiple locations and multiple archive facilities and so on. LTO has been around for a long time, being able to then do long-term archive of that media, being able to put it on tape. We manage typically the media that's stored on tape through a middleware application like Zendata or Black Pearl, Scale Logic, and so on, others. So we do have the ability to kind of manage and know where the media is stored on which tapes, and we communicate all through that middleware application to be able to store that content. But again, cost-effective storage, long-term, so being able to then put on a shelf for 30 years or more that media, and then be able to recall it at any time. Again, most of the platforms have data encryption, so again, keeping things safe. And the tape storage consumes less power because it's only spinning up when you're going in, and EMAM is telling the middleware to go find that tape and then find that media on that tape, and then being able to restore that as well. So again, we have plenty of these. We can give you a list, but here's a list here of all the different platforms we have to manage both the media and, of course, all the metadata and everything associated with it. So the original content can go out to the LTO library systems. So any one of these, cloud as well as local LTO tapes and so on, then being able to search, find, and then restore as needed of all that media that you need. So access, again, searching and finding content through an LTO library system is quite easy. Being able to go in and find the content, all looking at the proxy and the metadata within the database, and then knowing where that media is on that tape, you can find the content and then restore that content. Now, some do have partial restore, so it just depends on the platform of the LTO libraries. Some do have partial restore, some will have to then restore the entire content, but that's up to you and the platform and so on, but we can work with you on which ones do support partial restore there as well. Okay, so again, on-demand retrieving, again, through the database, being able to then locate the media, find the content, retrieve that content. We manage then the LTO libraries through that middleware and finding the content, restore the files. The media, excuse me, the media does reside still in the tape library when you do the restore. So it'll always be there until we physically tell it to actually delete that media. And then also those who have access to the media can only restore it. And then re-archive once maybe something's been updated and so on, we can re-archive media as well at any one point in time through the EMAM system. So again, cost-effective storage locally, enhanced data security with encryption and so on, and of course, efficient data management as well, being able to then archive and retrieve this media seamlessly, through searching and finding the content and then hitting restore there as well. So again, kind of to wrap things up, all of these different storage locations we can manage through the EMAM system. Gives you the ability to kind of go in and say, okay, we have production storage for immediate production. We can then move projects off to nearline storage to be recalled quickly and then be able to produce something and then maybe move it off to deep archive. And then of course, different LTO library systems. But again, the EMAM system does have the ability to manage both media on an LTO library, deep archive, near archive, and of course production or source media. That's the other one that's there as well. So Dave, I think we've reached madness here of information, and see if there's any questions.
Sure, we'll give people a few minutes to type in more questions and we'll go over them. Yeah, thanks for all the information. So one question is, so deduplication, how do we prevent storing multiple copies of the same file again and again?
Yeah, so typically that's done through a couple of ways, through naming convention, through category assignments, and then we also do an MD5 checksum where we write scripts to then go in and search if that media is already uploaded into the MAM system, and then we can, delete any kind of duplication. Also, if you're uploading from Adobe Premiere through the panel, it will notify you that the assets already reside in the system and go ahead and link with that media because it's exactly the same media all based on that information that we store within that asset. So we kind of manage it that way as well.
Okay. And another question. So how within EMAM itself, how do we manage or move media between the different tiers and types of storage and archive?
Yeah, so the process is, first off, on the ingest profile describes exactly where the media goes first. So that ingest profile says, okay, we'll upload it to S3 bucket. Okay, then at that point, if I set rules for that S3 bucket that if nobody touches anything for say 60 or 90 days, it'll automatically in the background be moved to say Glacier at a different level and so on. So we can set up all these automated processes if there are certain dates reached and so on, that they can be automatically then moved to that platform. A copy of that could be moved to the platform. And then the system then detects, okay, what's the rule for purging from production storage where the original location where that media went to. We can then purge that media based on say 10 days or a day or something of that nature. There's then also the process where I could just take based on a category and say, take this entire category with all these project files and go ahead and archive them manually as well. So there'll be a menu choice within the EMAM director interface to go ahead and select the categories and then just hit the archive, or individually go ahead and select files and hit the archive button as well.
Great, thanks. And I think the other questions we pretty much answered. Wanted to say we have a couple more kind of foundational webinars coming up, one on media production, one on media delivery distribution. Hope to see you at the fall shows, IBC, and the other shows that are coming up. And if you want a recording of today's either webinar or the slide deck, or recent webinars on AI, let us know. We'd be happy to send those to you. Let's see if there's any other questions today. If not, thank you for all your interest, and shameless call out to our system integrator partners worldwide. So the EMAM system supports all these different tiers and everything else, but if you or your team need help setting up, installing, figuring out what the best one to choose is for your specific needs, we put them right on our website and work with them to set up whatever's best for your needs. But, thank you so much for your interest today, and have a great day.